Hello, boys and girls. So, this is the fifth book in our Journeys reading series, and you were not able to take this book home, still in the classroom, but you can find it online if you just scan the QR codes that I had dojoed to you. Anyway, little girl, maybe she's blowing some bubbles and playing with her dolls. Let's see what the stories in this book are all about. The first story, lesson 21, which I will read today, Frog and Toad Together. Story 22, Amazing Animals, that'll be for next week. Story number 23, Whistle for Willie, and we read that in the classroom. Lesson 24, A Tree is a Plant, and lesson 25, The New Friend. All right, welcome reader. What happens to living things as they grow? That's what the stories in this book are about. You will meet animals and children who are learning new things. You will even meet a funny toad who wonders if singing songs and telling stories will help his garden seeds grow. As you read, the number of words you know grows too. Read on. So even though you are home, boys and girls, you are all growing. You're growing taller and bigger and smarter. All right. And here's our first story, lesson 21, Frog and Toad Together. These are some of the words from your story. Few, night, loudly, window, noise, story, shall, world. Okay. To make a garden grow, you start with seeds. You plant them in the soil. Then you take care of them. You make sure they have enough water and sunlight. Soon the seeds will start to grow. Tiny plants will pop up in the soil. They will get bigger. Soon you will have big plants with flowers or vegetables. Next, you will read a story about what happens when a character named Toad plants some seeds in the garden. And boys and girls, you can think about the characters and the setting and the plot as I read. Of course, you know the characters are the people or the animals in the story. The setting is where and when the story takes place. The plot tells us what the story is about. All right. The Garden, from Frog and Toad Together, by Arnold LaBelle. And there's Arnold LaBelle. He wrote the story. He started drawing when he was a child. When he grew up, he wrote and illustrated almost 100 books for children. His books won many awards. Frog and Toad have even been in a Broadway musical. And this story is a fantasy. It's a story that cannot happen in real life. You're going to notice that animals are talking and acting like people. And there are events in the story that might not happen in real life. Okay, the garden. What grows in a garden? Can you think of some things that grow in a garden? I can think of flowers and vegetables, maybe fruit. Okay. Frog was in his garden. Toad came walking by. "What a fine garden you have, Frog," he said. "Yes," said Frog, "it is very nice, but it was hard work." "Oh, I wish I had a garden," said Toad. "Here are some flower seeds. Plant them in the ground," said Frog, "and soon you will have a garden." "How soon?" asked Toad. "Quite soon," said Frog. Toad ran home. He planted the flower seeds. "Now, seeds," said Toad, "start growing." Toad walked up and down a few times. The seeds did not start to grow. So we've had a few characters in the story so far. Of course, here is Toad. Do you remember the other character in the story? If you don't, you can look at the words, or you'll see on one of the other pages. So Toad's trying to grow his seeds. What does he need to do besides tell them to grow? What do seeds need to begin growing? Well, Toad put his head close to the ground and said loudly, "Now, seeds, start growing!" Toad looked at the ground again. The seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head very close to the ground and shouted, "Now, seeds, start growing!" Frog came running up the path. "What is all this noise?" he said. "My seeds will not grow," said Toad. "You are shouting too much," said Frog. Those poor seeds are afraid to grow. My seeds are afraid to grow? Asked Toad. You think yelling at the seeds is going to make them grow? I don't think so. Seeds need water. Seeds need sunlight to grow, not yelling. Of course, said Frog. Leave them alone for a few days. Let the sun shine on them. Let the rain fall on them. Soon your seeds will start to grow. That night, Toad looked out of his window. Drat, said Toad. My seeds have not started to grow. They must be afraid of the dark. Toad went out to his garden with some candles. I will read the seeds a story, said Toad. Then they will not be afraid. Toad read a long story to his seeds. So what is Toad's problem? What's wrong? Well, I know he's trying to grow his seeds, but they won't grow. What has Toad done to try to grow his seeds? Well, he's yelled at them. That didn't seem to work. Frog mentioned that his seeds need some sunlight and some water. All the next day, Toad sang songs to his seeds. And all the next day, Toad read poems to his seeds. And all the next day, Toad played music for his seeds. Toad looked at the ground. The seeds still did not start to grow. What shall I do? Cried Toad. These must be the most frightened seeds in the whole world. Then Toad felt very tired, and he fell asleep. Toad, wake up, said Frog. Look at your garden. Did you see his garden, boys and girls? Toad looked at his garden. Little green plants were coming up out of the ground. Finally, his seeds began to grow. At last, shouted Toad, my seeds have stopped being afraid to grow. And now you will have a nice garden too, said Frog. Yes, said Toad, but you were right, Frog. It was very hard work. Do you think it was hard work, boys and girls? Did Toad even need to do much? He needed to plant his seeds. His seeds needed water and sunlight, but they did not need songs or shouting. Toad is a bit of a silly character. Toad is one of the characters in the story. And who was the other character? The other character, of course, was Frog. What would you say the setting of the story is? Well, where are they? Oh, they're in a garden, that's right. This is Toad's garden. So I would say the setting is Toad's garden. The characters are Frog and Toad. But what was the plot? Who was the story about, and what was the story about? This story was about Toad trying to grow seeds in his garden, but he didn't know what to do. He shouted at his seeds. He read stories and poems to his seeds. He played music for his seeds, but that didn't work. All Toad needed to do was wait for his seeds to grow on their own. Well, that's that, boys and girls. I will see you next week. You can think about the characters and the setting and the plot of any stories you might read at home. Have a good day.